Hey guys, and welcome back to Untier Talk. This time, more unbiased power rankings with Megazard and Jed. And
What's up, guys?
yeah, I didn't really know how to intro that, to be completely honest, because I said more, and that's because we did them for exhibition, and now we're gonna do them for PUPL too. But I don't know if that was clear.
Yeah.
Our exhibition ones were like not the worst, but like I think the best P record we said that we placed fourth, but we said that like the Katatsuri team could do amazingly or terribly. So like that's not you know it's not that far off. And then we would have ranked ourselves like first. We had the second best record. Anyway, we're not talking about exhibition. We're gonna see if we can keep that track record of mediocrity going hard with the PUPL team rankings. We are going to be using lineups. At the moment, week one has not gone up. I don't have the lineup from Robert Alphonse. I have everyone else's. And I'm going to be telling Hajad them because he promised to lock his lineup, so he can't change it at all.
Yeah.
Plus, we don't have his week one opponent's lineup anyway. And we haven't even discussed who we think is the best and worst. We're just going to kind of be going through and talking about the lineups, and you may want to have them in front of you or something, or not. I don't know. But we can start with the team that I think we're both going to place sixth pretty solidly.
Let me just have a quick look at these because, I'm placed in fifth. Sixth.
Yeah, so all of mine auxiliaries, right? We're on the same page here?
Yeah, we are.
Yeah. This is a very interesting team in that, like, for the team that looks the worst, I don't think it looks the worst by that much at all. I actually think they're like I think they clearly need to be the worst, just based on like who's around. But I don't think they're that much farther below like the Kinglers, the Mischievous, even your team potentially from how other people might judge it. I don't think they're that bad, but they definitely just are a little all over the place.
It has an air of stinky to it. I think that's the key thing.
An air of stinky?
Like somebody on that team is going 06. Somebody on that team is going 06. I don't know who it is or like how, but I'm thinking somebody on that team is going 06. There's no guaranteed records on that team.
I think the one person I would say is pretty guaranteed actually is Chris Loud is a DPP pickup. I think is perfectly solid.
Yeah, he's solid.
Arguably like the best or second best player in the pool. I think that's pretty fair to say.
Hayes up first, Chris Loud second.
Hayes up first? Yeah, all right. Whose team is Hayes up on? Because I don't think he's starting.
He's on
the Victory Bells. Oh no, he's on the Victory Bells, which we don't have. Yeah, okay. So he's almost certainly starting. So yeah, Chris Loud, like a top 2 DPP. I think he's going to be great. Looking at the rest of the team though, in Black-White they have Drudd, who's been like solid, and no one knows Black-White. It's like very new meta, but like he never has really impressed me a ton. No one really knows Black-White, but even then I wouldn't rank him above people like Eva Guerrero, maybe even Aaron Boyer, whoever Robert Alphonse is throwing. It's CB Aaron Judge, that's it. Like, Drudd doesn't stand out a lot.
I'd probably rank Drudd over Aaron Boyer because of his like tour reputation, tour proceedings. I feel like he's a solid like pickup, a solid player. But as I said before, like he's not somebody who's gonna like go 6-0, throw everybody under the.
I think he'll go even, sure, but
yeah. But that's like even on a good season, you know what I mean? Like if he like plays to the top of his potential, he'll go even. But there's a potential always with players like that. Maybe they don't have enough time to invest, or maybe they don't get enough practice, whatever.
You're a bit worse on him than I am, then. But okay, yeah.
Yeah. Then maybe I think he has the potential of going, 05, 06, the 1-5, you know what I mean, something like that. So I don't rate it particularly highly, but I think it's still like a solid pickup. Like I don't hate it.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of like solid pickups that are like fine, I don't hate them, but they're probably not amazing. They got Rommel and Orasing. Rommel with Tone and Akir support is not bad, but he's been like questionable like activity. How much has he really played? All that. He's like quit all over the place.
Really care?
Last PUPL,
you know what I mean?
He just completely disappeared and never responded to my team. I drafted him. He just disappeared mid PUPL and never responded to everything. So he's a bit questionable there, but otherwise I think he's like definitely going to be a strong ORAS player with that kind of support. Um, ORAS does look like a pretty strong gen though, and I know Rama has good support, but when you put him up against people like Shane Ghoul or False, uh, as like the two big names especially, I don't know that he looks like that amazing. Kind of like Drud in the solid, but not quite top the pool. Like fine, but eh. Feel that? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's basically what I wanted to say about Roman as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think the key thing about him is if Tone can keep him interested. So if the team activity is high and the team attitude is really good, maybe they're winning a few games. I think that's going to be the key to whether he stays or just dips. So again, like he could go 3-4, or like 3-3, or like 3-2 or whatever. But honestly, like again, he could potentially just go 0-6 or 0-3 and just dip, and then nobody would see him ever again.
I completely agree. But I guess we can move on to the bulk of the tour. That's the old gens. Let's meet the SM. So for their 5 SM starters, they have Tasker, Ziri, and Chloe. This is a core I kind of like, but Tasker's been he kind of quit, so I don't know how much he's going to throw into this. Ziri has been pretty good in team tours in the past, but also like not entirely the most consistent in showing up for some tours. And Chloe's been really good recently, but also like extremely new to the PU tours. And those are like their strong players. Those are their strong SMers, because their other starters are Jonigo and Tondis. And this is like the first big tour for both of them. And who knows, like they could both show up. But like when you have people with such little experience, like you have to rate them really low. I haven't seen anything that would like strongly suggest I really think that they're just going to break out, go on a tear or anything. Just I don't know. This SM is really what doesn't look especially strong, especially when you look at their opponents. Like, just look at this lineup versus the Haunters lineup for week 1. When they're starting Katut, Kush, TJ, Lockjaw, Sam. That's like 10 times more intimidating, and it really kind of just is what makes the Octilleries really not look like the best team here.
Yeah, I mean, I believe, personally speaking, that we had a huge quality, don't know how to put it, deficit, I guess. I mean, we have so much quality, but we don't have that many like slots. Even it sounds crazy to say that, but we have so many like big name household PU like players at the moment, or just like tour players in general right now, that having 2 players in your SM starting lineup which are like kind of, they don't you don't have like a good idea about where they're actually at, is kind of like a risky like decision. That's why a lot of teams, they invested heavily in SM in terms of tour players, and then played old gens more as like a PU main safe haven. I feel like the main reason for that was like the SM is like more dictated upon like skill level, pure skill level. Whereas old gens, like you can steal a win. Like you can steal a win in black white, you can steal a win in DPP, but you can't do that in SM. Let's say in a high intensity situation.
I don't know. I think DPP has a good amount of people like really do play DPP. Same with black white. And don't get me wrong, I think SM just looks generally like pretty strong for this tour. I'm quite excited, and I do think the Auxiliaries look a lot worse for fielding players like Jonico and Tondis just comparatively. But I don't think SM is necessarily like that so strict that you couldn't get away with that, or that looks that crazy. Because the other SM starters include people like J-Mash, Yogi, Gondra I've never seen play PU before, even though he's great. Just a few names, like just those 2 names do already make the Auxiliaries SM look way different in comparison, but I don't think it's entirely as selective. That being said, it does interest me a lot if you look at who's on the bench on Tone's team. Akir, obviously, great building sport, all that, not especially surprising. Yedla, he had the seasonal run that was like okay, I mean, it was like far and seasonal, and then I kind of disparaged it. But like, you would kind of expected Yedla to start over Joniga and Tondas, but also Gunnar Rohan and Luthier, both on the bench also, as like known good tour players, especially Luthier. To see him not getting a starting spot really surprises me. And that Tone wants to start Tondas and Jonigo, especially with also Tasker, Jiri, Chloe, tells me he really wanted to like throw it in for all the PU mains, even though like he picked up tour players in the first place. But yeah, like I think if it was literally just Luthier over Jonigo, I would rate the Octillery's lineup a lot higher right now. I'm also pretty high on Luthier in general.
Yeah, I would say like in terms of like the people like the less experienced like type of people we have, Jonigo is actually like when I did tryouts for a lot of the players in UPL, there were a few people who when I tried out, I could tell immediately that they were a cut above your standard tryout person, right?
Mm-hmm.
Jonigo played extremely well versus me. He 6-0'd me, and then I'm sure he showed everybody that replay. Leonard was really good. I don't quite remember which team he got on. I believe it was Many's team.
Yeah, Tlenet is on... No, I'm sorry. He's also benched on Tone's team. I skipped over Tlenet too.
Extremely interesting. That's extremely interesting.
I do agree but I do agree with you. Jonigo's look pretty good. Tondas is actually the weird one as a user who kind of quit, then but he's like back for a bit, but then also like I don't think I've ever seen Tondas in any big tour. And don't get me wrong, I want Tondas to get that chance. But starting immediately when you have people like Tlenet, ladder like who did well in seasonal, just made quarters of ladder tour on the stacked side. Or again, like Luthier and Gunnar as the known tour commodities. Very interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree. Jonigo has looked pretty good, and I don't hate trying to start at least him. And I guess not to disparage Tondas, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, as we were speaking earlier on, it was like, how many of these people have the potential to go 6-0, for example? Like, how many people, like, you could say Chloe, potentially. Like,
I think Chloe is probably going to be the player I'm most interested in. Yeah, for sure. For, like, someone to really break out. Great wins versus Katat recently. Lots of help from other people. Also starting versus Lockjaw, which is, like, not the easiest opponent, but certainly someone I think Chloe can absolutely beat without like looking too crazy impossible or anything. And if you get that momentum rolling early, I think that'd be great for her. You know, compared to like if you're trying to start versus a TJ or someone, I think that's also a really good opportunity for her.
Yeah, I think this is the key thing why we were talking about this team being like last place, is because like the only person on that lineup that we can see going 6-0 potentially is Chloe. Like that's the only person that you can see on that lineup. Maybe Chris Loud, but I mean that's unlikely considering like DPP as a gen and like who he's playing against. Like I don't think that's a like a far-fetched statement.
Yeah, I agree. And that's not to disparage like Tasker and Jiri as their bigger names, but I don't think either of them necessarily have shown the 6-0 recently. Especially Tasker like post like quitting and stepping back from the game a bit. But I think we can move on from the Octilleries. That was I'm happy with that analysis. We both knew that we wanted to put Octilleries last, but I don't think we've talked about our rankings at all past the Octilleries. I know who I would put next.
Okay, let me have a quick look at Factron's lineup, and then I'll make my decision.
All right, I'll give you a brief second, even though it's a live podcast that won't be edited, so it'll just be like just blank text. All right, fine. You look at Robert Alphonse's lineup. Me personally, and this is really tough because, again, I think only one team looks that like notably above everyone else. Spoilers, it's the Haunters. I think the Haunters definitely look the strongest. So like placing anyone fifth is genuinely much harder than like even an exhibition when we said that like no, this is really a lot closer. But I think to edge out the next slot, um, I would have to go with the Kinglers.
Yeah, I got that. Yeah,
You agree with the Kinglers?
yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, and it's like again, they're really not bad. But when you talk about that, like who's going to really break out and go 6-0, I only have one name in mind again, and then the rest of the lineup's like fine. Um,
Um, I personally think Pearl and Lax, they'll probably do really well. They'll be extra motivated because Slam. So I think they'll pick up the tier and then hit the ground running. I think they'll do really well.
I was going to just say Pearl, but actually, yeah, Pearl, both Pearl and Lax, sure.
Yeah, those are the two people that I consider to be like. I would consider them as like elite level tour players, where they're constantly in like OU playoffs. They're constantly in like Land Slam playoffs. They're in and around the lower tier scene, so they know the metas. They play them consistently.
Yeah, and
so I think
if there was any question about motivation, like we said, we know that they're looking to show up big in Slam. Pearl in particular has played a lot of ORAS in the past and talked a lot about playing ORAS, but I believe specifically wanted SM because that's practice for Grand Slam. So I think that's just like a big, interesting ups to both of them. But I guess starting with SM, after that, TSR did very well like 2 exhibitions ago, and I don't think I've seen them do any PU since. JMash is, a community member that everyone really knows around, but I don't think there's any way to rate him that highly, just because I haven't seen him in any other tours. I think he subbed for exhibition, but never played, I think. And I haven't seen him make any seasonal runs or anything. Yeah, like I really have never seen JMash, and I do not know what he's capable of. And then Ryza, who's like, I don't even know. He used to be like complete top PU, but since he left like years ago, he's kind of showed up and not done a whole lot. Like I don't know. They're fine, but they're fine, but they're not like they're not like that standout or anything.
Yeah, I don't appreciate how Mum stole Ryza from me to complete the Italian triple core. But, you live and you learn, I guess. But I think this team, it's going to win games consistently, but I think it's going to bleed a lot of losses in other places, for example. So, for example, I don't think Realistic Waters, Aaron Boy, or Gasquake is that strong enough for a old gen score to nick you 1 out of 3 wins, a week, or 2 out of 3 wins a week, for example. I think Realistic Waters, especially because he's like he doesn't really play like DPP. Like I've never seen him touch.
I've never seen Realistic Waters play DP at all. In fact, it really surprises me that Realistic Waters is the DPP when, hang on, this Kinglers have, let me just double check to confirm who the Kinglers, hang on. Yeah, okay. So the Kinglers traded General Annoyance to the Haunters for Aaron Boyer. Now consider that you have General Annoyance, who's like notably solid DPP player, like notably just, he's shown up for all the DPP tours and done very well. It's like he is like the only PU main I can think of who literally doesn't play SM. DPP is just his thing, and you traded him away for a black-white player when you could have just like gotten Watchog or even just Realistic Waters to play black-white, or maybe Roman or whoever. That really, really hurts my estimation of this team, because I don't think Aaron's like that amazing to go like super positive in black-white. Like I think he can do fine, but I don't think he's going to be going like on a tear 6-0. And I don't think Realistic Waters is going to really stand out in the DPP field.
Yeah, I mean, when we're talking about 6-0 potential, I think this like ORAS, all-gen lineup, is the most potential to go 0-6 out of each player than probably any of them, to be honest, because DPP-wise, like Realistic Waters, we don't know. Aaron Boyer, I think his season will be a massive success if he goes positive. I think if Aaron Boyer goes positive, he can like leave PUPL with his head held high, right?
Yeah.
And if Gasquake also goes positive, that will be a miracle from God, because I haven't seen this man play Pokemon for the last 2.5 years. So couple that with like your sort of like bipolar SM, like you have two standout like fantastic players, and then like a train of people that we don't know their like skill cap, and we other people that we do, but you know they're old. So I mean, it's a solid lineup. It's definitely better than your auxiliaries, just because you have like your standout names. You have Pearl and Lax. Like that's extremely good from the off. But yeah, I would have wanted to see a bit more, especially from the old gen side.
I completely agree. With Aaron and Gasquake, it's really a matter of like if they go positive, I think they'll be solid, but I don't think it's enough for the team. We haven't hit on their subs at all yet, so let me see. This is the Kinglas. They have 2 times the tap. That's a huge fucking question mark right there. I'd love to see him do well, but I think he's really just going to be a lot of building support, which is great for Pearl and Lax and overall worth it, but I don't know how much he's going to play. Serene Grace has done like pretty decently in some PU stuff. Like I think he's generally pretty fine. Osh is a good tour player who can easily sub in with and get a 2 times the tap team pass, so I think he's a perfectly good sub, but not going to be like huge support. Same with Gum and Watchog. I don't know how much they're gonna provide. And then they also have no, that's it. I'm sorry. I was gonna say Roman. Like no, Roman's the sellback. Yeah, like I don't know how much to expect from any of their subs. Like they've got the building support 2 times the tap and Gum. And Osh is like a solid 1 sub, but there's not a huge margin for error here. I don't think like any of these players are really going to be that amazing if you bring them on.
Yeah, I mean, the team is really going to be dependent on Mom, Gum, and like 2 times the tap and like J-Mash to really bring like the vibes and the activity to the team call. I believe if like those 4 in particular, they talk every day, they're constantly discussing teams, then that level of like enthusiasm for your team will like translate. And people like Lax and Pearl, they'll feel motivated. They'll say, "Oh my god, I have this new idea for a team. Let me try it. Let me build it." So if you can keep your entire team like interested, people like Ryza and like TSR, they'll need to be, you need to keep them interested. You need to keep feeding them ideas, feeding them team ideas. So yeah, I think that team is like a bust, depending on how active the active players are supposed to be. If they're inactive, like people like Mom, TSR, Mom, Gum, those
no, I know what you mean,
inactive.
and I completely agree, and I really do think that there's a good chance like Manny and 2 times tap are really prolific builders. If Pearl and Lax really get in it, other low tier PLs are also winding down too, so that's a plus for like less distractions. Yeah, I could really see this team doing a lot better, but if we're gonna rank them on like odds of making it to playoffs, I just think we have to throw them in the bottom half. Did you get an idea of who your team your 4th ranked team is going to be when you looked, or do you need to do another once over?
I'm pretty sure. I think.
Who are you? Who?
I would put the Missies.
I completely agree. And again, it's like wow, like it's hard to choose someone. I don't hate this team, but they're weird. They're like, how do I put it?
This team could easily win. But they could easily come last as well.
I completely agree, because they have some slot. Like half their slots are like perfectly solid, and then the other half are like people who could fall or just pop off. And that's the weird slot. So I guess we've started in old gens and we've started in SM. I guess we can keep swapping back and forth. Let's start in old gens. I loved the Shane Ghoul, Evagero, Black White, Oras and Black White core. Great.
Yeah, that's really true.
Top Oras Black White, perfectly good. Should at least be going positive. If not, just like really standing out. Banks and DVP, I've never seen them play DVP.
I've never seen Banks play DVP OU, let alone PU, so I'd agree with
Banks
that.
isn't an OU player. He's an... What is he?
Yeah, I think Banks is an NU player. recall correctly. But
Banks is an NU player. But he's in current gen NU even. Like DPP NU is in NUPL, and he's playing Gen 7 NU. Like, I don't know. I assume he knows Evagero and they worked something out, or maybe he tried out, but like I can only think of him as, him and Realistic Waters tied for last.
Well.
You're right. I'm pretty sure it is she. I can only think of her and Realistic Waters as like tied for last in DPP as like the people we've never seen touch the meta before.
I mean, there's no way to judge.
And they are facing each other week 1, so that's momentum for one of them.
Someone's going to end up 1-0.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Same thing with their SM slots. You've got LST is like the big 25k most expensive pick, and I really do think he will show up. But even with that, he's never really had like last PUPL he popped off, but then in exhibition he went. No, in exhibition he did well too. Never mind.
He did well in exhibition.
Okay, he's done well in things. I don't know why I thought he hadn't done well in something recently. I think LST is gonna be great either way. And then you have 3 tour players that's like they are generally really good, but on this team there's not as much building support as on, say, the Kinglers, so I don't know how crazy they're gonna end up being. But I think it's Gondra, Chill Shadow, and Eternally. They're all quite good. I like they're good overall, and it's like, will they perform? And if they do, this team could easily get to playoffs or even win the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, this team is absolutely solid, but as you said, it's going to come completely down to the quality of teams that they get given. That 3 in particular are going to get given.
Yeah, I mean, you say it's absolutely solid, but then their 5th SM starter is Yogi, and
I rate Yogi quite highly as a player, to be honest. Like, I think when it comes down to one-off games, he's probably.
When was the last time Yogi played PU though? Seriously.
Yogi plays PU a hell of a lot. No, he plays a lot, but the thing is with Yogi is that
really
just on the same like principles where he can win a game, like a one-off game, like instantly, because of how he decides to play the game and how he decides to build his teams, right? It's the same principle that means that he might just lose a game instantly, right? So going off of his old PUPL records, I think he's like 6-1 in PUPLs, so he's clearly like decent at current gen PU, right? In getting those one-off games right. But I know,
I don't know.
He could turn up and be like really good.
I agree, he can turn up, but I still would put him in the same question mark slot, maybe even a little more questionable than like your Eternally and Chill Shadows and all that. I don't know, just kind of an if. And the thing that stops me from rating this team higher, the reason I think these players are iffier, is because I don't know that the building support is that crazy. So you have Evagero and Shane Cool and LST who are like good builders, but I don't know about like as prolific as to keep providing teams for all these people.
And then like set your mind back. Let's set our minds back to exhibition, right? So me and you were, for example, well, mainly me, was providing LSD with the PU teams for his exhibition run.
Mm-hmm.
Dips and Teddy were providing Shangle's teams for most of his exhibition run, and Evagaro doesn't really build too much in SM. I could be corrected.
I don't believe so. It was Evagero, Ryza, and like no one else on their exhibition team, and that didn't go over very well at all.
Yeah, so the only building support that you really have on that team in terms of like an SM like builder is going to be via LST and Yogi.
Well, now that's not quite true. I will, because I know people are going to think that, and I say their building is a little better than that. First of all, Keo, I bought him last PUPL. I was actually quite impressed. He's also my manager this NUPL. He throws around a lot of like genuinely good ideas, and I think he shouldn't be underrated as someone who can really support. But the big name is actually like the one user I think like genuinely pretty much no one has heard of. Are you familiar with Eurusius?
I am not, because I don't think he tried out, but I felt like he was a new person that Evie might have tried out that I didn't.
Yeah, so I think most people will have no idea who this is, and I actually had no idea who this is until Evagero told me. Like, this is a user with 2 posts, and his avatar is a meme of Wurmple going bruh. But he's actually Katut's tutor. Apparently, he's like the dude who taught Katut Mons, gave Katut a lot of his teams, like worked a lot, like this just like random French dude. That is like maybe this is where Evagero wants all the teams to come from, because as far as like completely random dudes, I taught Katut a lot of what he knows. And again, I don't know how true this is, but this is what Evagero says. And Evagero like clearly went out of his way to buy Eurusius, definitely looking like Eurusius is the one who's supposed to provide building support. So maybe that'll be where they turn up. And also, for what it's worth,
That's fair enough.
I know Gondra, when I was on not this RUPL but last RUPL with Evagero on Gondra, and Gondra, even though he's not an RU player, did build a lot for RUPL. And like Evagero motivated him to do that. So I think those are maybe where some more builds are going to come from. It's still definitely a huge question mark, but that's who this Erusius person is.
That's fair enough. Honestly, I had no idea about that.
I had no idea either. Yeah, no, that's crazy. I was like, what? Okay. The other two people on their team, for the record, Philip Byrne and Obi, perfectly good subs, but I don't think they're going to be providing much.
Yeah, I think in terms of builds, as we continue to talk about them, I think, to be honest, I think how the team is going to fall or sink is how much retaliation, I think that's the wrong word, like pushback the SM players give to the team building support. So, for example, if Eternally, Gondra, Chill Shadow, they decide to like be picky, I guess, with the teams, or like, I only prefer this style of team, so can you build me this style of team, for example, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that might be a boundary potentially, because the output of teams isn't going to be as much as I'll give you, for example, the Haunters or the Kingless, for example. But you'd expect maybe there might be a little bit of pushback as well, considering that these are top tour players, so they're going to want the best team possible. So, yeah, it's going to come down to how well the team is cohesive, or how well the team joins together. To be honest, yeah, I think they're very good. They could come like last, but they could come like first as well. Like that's a different like factor about this team.
I completely agree. If you want to talk for a brief second, I actually forgot that I'm supposed to do AG ladder tour right now. The ladder is ended, so I have to like update who laddered the highest. So if you want to just talk briefly.
Okay, I'll talk briefly about things. So CB Rampardos is the best Pokemon in...
No, like about who you want to rate next.
Okay, well, do I include my team in this? Because I rate my team first.
I can be the unbiased ranker of your... Just who would you put next?
I would go for the Falcons team next. I'd go for his team.
Okay, let me take a brief look. Who we got left? So we have the Haunters, your team, and Fagtron's team.
Yeah.
I would actually personally put your team and Fagtron's team about equal, and I don't have huge opinions on breaking the tie, so we can talk about Fagtron's team first. You're definitely not the unbiased person here, so but I think that's fine if you want to start talking about them.
Yeah, I mean, so Fagtron's team, we don't have a lineup for, so I'm just going to read off the people that they bought from the auction.
Yeah, this is the one team we don't have a lineup for. Sorry, guys.
Yeah. So they have Robert Alphonse bought himself. They bought FLCL and Rob Jr. They bought Asa, CB Aaron Judge, Raichi, Alkion, Poe, who they then traded for False later on. Real FB13, Hanex 4, Shuckledeath, Lighthouses, and Blue YM. So, yeah, when I'm thinking about this team, I think, okay, holy, like, hell, they have a really strong SM core. Like, FLCL and Rob Jr., that is an incredible, like, SM duo, I guess you can call it, where you have like a top tour player playing to beat other top tour players.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, sorry, I'm back.
Yeah, that's an extremely like devastating like 1-2 combination. I think that core will probably lead most of like the games, like the SM1, SM2, and they'll probably do really well. Like 6-0 potential wise, this core is like really high. And then to top that off as well, that they have Hace-Up, who I think is undisputably the best DPP player in the field, just in terms of like tour results and the knowledge of the tier. I think Hace-Up's probably top one when it comes to DPP, PU, having managed him for like the last couple of years as well. 3, the reason why I rank them.
Hang on, I'm sorry. Just to be clear, the people you hit on was that Hace-Up, FLCL, and Rob Jr. are real good, right?
Yeah,
that's what you said. For what it's worth, I do think it's complete. I do think Robert Alphonse should be thrown in there as also like always done well in the team tours. I think he'll be just as good too. And I think like those 4 people as half their lineup look great. Like half their lineup, top notch.
Yeah, I mean that's fair enough. I think Robert Alphonse has always that streak of like craziness about him. So it really comes down to how people want to like stop him, I guess. So I mean, yeah. So going on to like the rest, I'm gonna just speculate the rest of his lineup. So I think False is gonna start in Oras.
I think we know for like there's almost no way that it's not true that False is going to start Oras and CB Aaron Judge is going to start Black White. And actually, I forgot about False because he got traded on. And he's not in like the graphic I'm looking at. And I think False actually is like a 5th person. Just definitely, I would put pretty much up there as just as strong.
So yeah, like with False though, it's always like an activity like worry. Like False could go like 5-0 and like not say a word, and he could also go 0-5 and not say a word, and like he's just that type of player. So I mean, he doesn't fill you with confidence, but he's for sure like a really good tour player. So
I think False is the best. I think False is the best Oras slot. If I had to rank the Oras starters right now, I would put False as number 1, conditionally on the fact that Teddy is still in this like nebulous quit state where he talks about how he doesn't like PU and he's got exams and he's really busy IRL. If Teddy puts everything towards it, I would put Teddy number 1, False number 2. But yeah, I would put False number 1. Yeah, deal with it.
That's interesting. Yeah, because False has like the tour experience. He's done well in like LTPL. You remember that tour, LTPL? He did he won the first PU Open, the first and only so far PU Open. So I mean, that's something that nobody can take away from him.
And he showed up in the last PUPL with Oras as well. I believe he had the best Oras record. I'd actually have to go.
Did he?
I can remember that. I can actually pull up the PU records real quick. I was looking at the sheet recently for the top PU records. I can't confirm that he'll be the best one, but I can look at his record overall. Okay, so PPL records overall, and I search for False, and what do I find? I find he went 1-1, really?
Yeah, I thought he was on the...
Oh, yeah, because he had so much trouble playing and everything. What surprises me is that the PPL before that, he only went 3-2. I thought he did much better. PUPL 3 is the PPL I was thinking went off. He only did 3-2. So maybe my confidence is misplaced, but I really do think he is that good. If he can play a game, I guess, because geez, he went 1-1. I forgot all about that. He just couldn't play.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it really comes down to that.
So yeah, I guess he should be a little more of an iffy slot than I made him out to be.
Yeah.
The other 3 likely starters, let's see. So that leaves for 3 more SM slots out of Robert Alphonse, FLCL, and Rob Jr. And I would say probably Ham, and Raichi, I think.
I think Raichi's more of an old gents type of guy, so I'd put Alkion in there, or Real FV32.
Yeah, maybe. Raichi's actually, I was on his RUPL team. He played Black White RU, so maybe he'll be helping out CB Aaron Judge and Black White. I don't know.
Yeah, I think potentially he could be DPP, maybe. I'm just speculating there. I have no idea who their DPP player is. I think maybe Blue YM.
What do you mean?
I have no idea.
What do you mean who their DP player is? We just talked about them having Haze up.
Never mind. I completely blanked up on Haze up. Okay. So yeah, it's going to be between Ham and like Alkion, I guess. I think probably those two are the most likely.
Yeah, Ham and then Alkion are real FV. Seems fair. I think Ham is going to be perfectly like solid, but probably not like crazy. Probably not crazy pop off. I think in a weaker pool he'd stand out a little more, but SM looks like generally pretty solid, and I don't know. And it's like they got some really solid players, but then the rest of the slots don't fill me with the most confidence. I think CBR and Judge is a bit overhyped as a black-white player. I'm not crazy on Ham. I'm not crazy on their last SM slot either. You know, like, I do think they're still quite good. I think they could easily win the tour. Robert Alphonse, known to be like a great manager who has lots of good plans, and I think what he's come out with is an incredibly scary team, which arguably in hindsight, maybe I should have like personally placed above your team, but I don't know. I think placing them even is about fair.
Fair enough. I mean, I rate my team first as usual. So
I would not rate you. I think your team could easily win, but I don't think it'd be fair to rate your team first. Speaking of your team, I guess we can just hop into it.
Yeah, as well.
I think your team has, again, real strong in at least the first 4 SM slots of like Finch, Tricking, Rexus, yourself. That's like, damn, that's an SM right there. Charm Flash, I know he's a tour player. He's done quite well in things like SPL, but I really am not like... he's done fine going to play in like UUPL, RUPL, things like that, but I'm not like that crazy die on him. I don't know. I actually can't come up with a great justification, to be honest, other than like he was my manager for the monotype thing, and I wasn't that impressed with him at all. As like, he kind of got memed on a lot for just not managing very well. So I don't know if that's bias or anything, but I'm not huge on that slot. But SM's pretty goddamn scary.
Yeah, I think the key thing for RSM is mixing a good like skill player gap with a strong building core. So
damn, we almost made it without a Hajjad cutout. Yeah, I think what he's going to talk about is the building core. Hajjad, obviously a prolific builder. Oh, you're back. Okay. Like you supported Kush and LST throughout exhibition, for example. You build a lot, and then you and Dibs is like that Brit core of just building is not just like good stuff, but these innovative things. And you have good players like Teddy and Rexus to pass them to. Rexus also, I'm really interested to see Rexus as someone who like only came out in exhibition, did real well. Okay, now he's in ladder tour finals, and now he's on a team tour with like you and Dibs and Teddy and all these people to support. I think that's gonna be a lot of fun. I want to see where this kid goes. I use this kid colloquially. Don't. But yeah, I think the SM building core is pretty cool, and for what it's worth, even if Charm Flash does not do very well, like for some reason, Mail or Mal, I don't know, and Jerry are both like good subs that are good. So
yeah, the whole idea was to make sure that
and Poe
will have good. Yeah, the whole idea is that we'll have a strong SM that can get past extremely strong teams, right? I mean, that's the whole point of like a team, I guess. But
and that's the point of this PUPL. There's 5 SM slots. It's literally 5/8 of your starters. SM's gonna be strong, and I'm glad the emphasis is there. I want to see a good SM, and I'm very hyped for PUPL, and I'm hyped for teams like these.
Yeah. So yeah. I was getting quite a few messages, I guess, during the auction, which I'm sure is like usual. I usually ignore them, but when they're like targeting at your like draft strategies, they're like, "Oh, what are you doing? You're not buying this player. Or what are you doing? You're not buying anybody's bid on people." For example, like when you get told that, it's just sort of like it's people like you just want to sort of tell them like chill, like I know what I'm doing. I have a good idea of who I want to draft, and I will bid on the people who I think are like good players. And then if they go for like little amounts of money, I'll be there to like seize that opportunity, which is sort of what I was trying to do. Like the entire auction was trying to hide Finch and Lax because people weren't deciding to like nom them. So that was going well until everybody chucked every last ounce of money at Finch and Lax, which is, I mean, fair enough. They're two extremely strong tour players.
Mm-hmm. Can I expand on what you said briefly? Actually, just
go
because I think it's going to get lost in your draft plan. I don't know how much the managers were watching the auction discussion, but as like just the host, I definitely was. And there were definitely some people there going like, did these managers even look at the pool? And like comments to that were like, they really did not like some of the drafts. And I think a lot of it was actually just people not liking tour players get drafted, which is very silly for the tier, but I'm not even going to go into that whole thing where like a tour player like Mail or even King Why Not should get drafted over someone like I don't want to throw out any names here, just like random PU mains room players. We
bashed Uhu last episode, so we'll bash him continuously.
Dude, God, yeah. I mean that kind of thing where. But, like, I really do think everyone went into this with a strategy. Even Tone, who has by far the weirdest and most off-ball team, I think, like, very intentionally ended up where he was looking to go. And I really don't like that disparagement of the managers. And I'm also extremely happy with this draft. I think I can name, like, 2 or 3 players that I really wish had been drafted and wish got in. And not only that, but people also talking about the money spent and how a lot of people just dumped so much money. Like, Evagero jumped like 25K on LST early. Tone ended up with the most money and spending the least early on, and I think his draft looks the worst. I think the best drafts come from the people who spent a ridiculous amount of money early on. Like, early on, Robert bought himself, FLCL, Rob Jr., Haysup. That was all extremely expensive. I think he's got a very scary draft. You spent a lot of money early on. TJ... spent a lot of money. Like, I think those drafts look better. So, deal with it.
Yeah, and I think the whole thing with like a tour community, from the tour community perspective, I think people still have this idea that PU is like this small tier, like it's a small like downgraded tier compared to like NU, RU, UU, whatever. I think people need to like get that out of their heads now, because if we're going to start competing in like official tournaments, say like Snake and Grand Slam now. Grand Slam for sure, certainly at least.
Mm-hmm.
If we're going to start competing in those tours, obviously there's going to be more interest from tour players. And we've seen it in this PUPL that certain tour players have said, look, I don't want to play this random old PU old gen because I've been put there in the past, right? I want to play SM, I want to be in the forefront, I want to build. All right, so when it comes down to PU Open Grand Slam, I'm in the best possible position to go far in that tour, get loads of points for my PU Grand Slam playoffs like adventures, for example. So I think it would be unfair to say, PU is like a small tier. You should only draft like the people within the community.
I agree, but can we cut this off here? Because I really don't want to do another thing about how tour players aren't this mean, scary bunch of people who shouldn't come around. I think we've done it. I think people should know by now that tour players getting drafted is only good for everyone. Let's just go on to your old gens, please, because I don't want to do this again.
Okay.
Teddy, like I said, he's still a question mark. I know he's playing for you. I know he's playing for the Brit team, but I still think Teddy's a question mark, and like how much he'll be motivated and put in. And obviously, you're the one who's gonna like be in charge of motivating him and everything, but. He's the guy who's like maybe, but not for sure. That's a kind of that he's just.
If we're talking like mid or SPU to Teddy, for example, like I always judge players not really based on like how average they can be or like how well they perform over a period of time. I'm talking about them in like a snapshot of time, for example, where they're at their peak of their powers, right? Because then you'll know somewhat, to some extent, what they're capable of, and then as a manager, you can try as best as you can to like unleash that potential, let's call it, right? And I feel like out of all the players in the PU community and the PU tour scene, Teddy probably has the highest ceiling. I don't think that's like a super arguable statement, considering his SPL records and his PU records and all of his experience in it. I think like he's by far got the highest ceiling like in the draft, but it's all about harnessing it. Like, is Teddy going to spend a few hours a day trying to build, trying to counter team, trying to like make amends, for example, right?
I completely agree, but ultimately, like, if we're looking at it before the draft, I just don't think we can know. But like, unless he's really acting it up, and everything he said about just like not being into PU and Mons and how busy is RL, like, I get that that's where you want him to be, but until that happens, we're not gonna know.
Yeah, I mean, like, in previous like PUPLs, Teddy hasn't really, like, even on my team, for example, Teddy hasn't performed that well. So like there was the 6-0 PUPL that he had, and then he's gone like really averagely since then. Which, I mean, I was the manager of pretty much all those teams, so that comes down to me mainly. But yeah, I mean, he has that potential to just do incredibly well. Yeah, I stand by that. I think he has a really high ceiling, obviously, and it's all about unlocking it. I think if he can, like, I don't know, put aside a few hours a day to work to play well, he'll do extremely well. Like, he'll overachieve.
All right, yeah, we've said this before. Let's go.
Okay.
It's literally the same speech. I think your worst slots are black, white, and DPP. I
agree.
I don't think that's unfair. Black White has triangles. He played Black White last PPL. He did average. Black White's a very different tier. Yeah. Who knows who's going to do well? But triangles, he did average. I don't know how much we can expect him to pop off. And then Durza and DPP. I mean, I know he's played DPP. I think I would rate him higher than Realistic Waters and Banks, but compared to the people who spent more time in this meta, I don't think he's going to come up to the Chris Loud, the General Annoyance, or the Haste-Up level. And I think he has every bit of potential to fall flat of, like, he only looks middle of the pack because Realistic Waters and Banks are starting, which is interesting. I think there were more DVP players that, like, didn't really get... I don't know what happened there. Like, we have other people, there's, like, even a Kier and Specs, but I don't know. Like, Durza...
Well, yeah.
If it's like Aaron Boyer, if he goes positive, if he goes like average, then I think he'll walk out like, hey, I did pretty good there. I exceeded expectations, because I don't think either of them. I think your old gens are the really like bit of a questionable scenario. But then with such a strong SM, at least the top 4 slots, it's like the other team's gonna really have to push very hard to stay even. With like how strong the SM is, even if the old gens come up short, how much is that going to matter? Because if they just go positive, like those random wins could be all that's needed.
Yeah, that was the idea mainly. I didn't have that much money to play around with when it came down to Black, White, and DPP, because I'd invested so heavily in Auras, considering there's 5 out of 8 slots. So when it came down to Black, White, I thought. Well, it's a meta which is quite volatile, and at the flick of a switch, you can have a completely different shake-up of a different meta, for example, right? So I thought, okay, I'll just put a tour player there, someone who I can trust, somebody who's like a decent player. So I put Triangles there as a 3k buy, SPL level player, so he should be able to do some stuff, especially in a...
Yeah, and that's the thing. Triangles doesn't look that amazing, but especially like for a 3k buy with what that gets you for the rest of the draft, I don't disagree with the purchase at all. I think that's, do I think Triangle's like one of the worst players in the pool? Yeah, but as a 3k buy, you can probably go about even. That there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever.
Yeah,
with the perspective, I guess.
Yeah, return on investment. Like, I feel like Triangles provides that, and the same with sort of Durza, where he done a couple of tryouts versus me and Teddy, where he played really well and sort of beat us comprehensively, sort of in the same way that Haste Up used to beat me and Teddy sort of comprehensively. So I was thinking, it's kind of worth a punt. I might as well try it.
Durza tries hard. So, like, he's known for that. So it could be worse.
besides that, we also have Poe, who can sub in DPP on the Switch. Mile can play DPP, and apparently Jerry can play DPP, but I've never seen him do that. So
yeah, all your subs cover DPP
having,
and SM, so that's pretty cool.
yeah.
So I know you would rate yourself number 1. Now here's my question: would you rate the Victory Bells or the Haunters number 2? Like if you were out of the picture, who would you rank number 1?
I'd rate TJ's team first. If I was out of the picture.
Okay. TJ is my pick for the number 1 team. The least amount of players, funnily enough. Everyone else has 12 or 13 players. TJ only has 10. And there's so that's already going to how much margin for error does he have? But I think looking at the starting lineup, pound for pound, there's no scarier team. So if you look at who he's before we even talk about anything specific, just look at the starting lineup of SM: Katut, Kush, TJ, Lockjaw, and Sam. And then you get to Oras, you have this 6-1 legend Rodri, or 6-0 or 7, I don't remember. Black, White, King, Why Not, the only slot that isn't top tier terrifying. Well, I guess maybe Lockjaw. And then DPP, General Annoyance. Just looking at that, I think it's hard to not put them at number 1. That's terrifying.
You can make an argument that they're not the number 1 team, based on the fact that Lockjaw isn't the greatest SM player. He's not got the ridiculously high ceiling that some others do, and Sam is not the most ridiculously active guy in the world. He's not gonna change how he plays, and he's not gonna change how he builds and stuff. So you know what you're gonna get out of Sam, and that can be a blessing and a curse at the same time. So potentially 2 question marks there. KW, he stated he loves Black White, and he stated interest in playing the tier. So it'll be interesting to see how he plays. But again, we haven't seen him do it, so you don't know about him.
Are we going to disparage the lineup first and then talk about them?
Yeah, no, we're going to.
Damn, you're feeling you're feeling threatened by how much I like their lineup. I see you.
Yes, and so yeah, and obviously they have Kate, who has sort of a weird past now in PU.
It's not really past, is it? It's kind of present.
Yeah, I mean, but the thing is with him, he had this weird sign-up post where he's sort of don't draft me if you're not willing for me to meme about and have fun or whatever. So I don't know how much you can take that seriously. Maybe he'll just come in and just smoke everybody, but I mean, sure. I mean, maybe he might just turn up with mono regenerator like he always does. You know what I mean?
I do know what you mean, but let's pull back a little bit, because I do know. Alright, so here's what I think. I think K-Tut is gonna genuinely want to come out and end up I think he's gonna perform. I think he's gonna go slightly memeier than his other performances, but I don't think it's gonna be much more than slightly. And I really do think that he's gonna pull out and do well. And I think he's actually gonna work well with TJ. And my prediction is TJ's gonna get K-Tut to not go completely overboard and really come down and nail playing well. That's my prediction for K-Tut, and believe me, I have some issues with K-Tut. He has said some disgusting and very offensive things about me and you, really just awful. But I wouldn't take that. I can't rate them lower because of it. I genuinely think that's where he's going to come up. I think Kushalos. We did an exhibition. I think he's always going to be that dude who give him that team, which I know they're capable of doing because they have TJ, Specs, and Aaron Boyer who can build. I think Kushalos is going to go amazing because I always believe in. I will never not believe in Kushalos. I think TJ is going to be super motivated. I know he's super motivated. This is his first time managing, and I know how much he wants to do this, and I really think he's going to be quite solid. Especially when he starts out getting the momentum week 1 versus Jonigo. If he loses versus Jonigo, though, he might just completely tilt. But I really think he's going to start off strong. I think Lockjaw is probably the worst starter that they have, and I've never been high on Lockjaw. Don't get me wrong. But he always managed to go at least even-ish, so I don't think he's going to be that bad. I'm really not a big Lockjaw fan. but I think he'll be fine at worst. Sam also, like, his activity's questionable and all that, but I think he's got just enough to support that he'll probably do at least pretty decently. And then Rodri, like, also has the potential. Last year he did have the best Oras record by far. Like, he went 6-1 or 7-0. I know, I don't remember which one it was.
Yeah, on the worst team. Though.
What?
It was on the worst team. It was on the what's it called? I forgot the manager. Fuck.
Wasn't he on Robert
Gention's team?
Oh, he was on Genion's team. Yeah, never mind. Okay, so he went 5-0 in PUPL 3, and he went 4-1 in PUPL 4 for a total of 9-1. That's basically what I was thinking of. Like, Rodri comes out real strong in Oras all the time. Finals of the only PU Open, of PU Slam in Oras. Like, I know I've said I place false higher, and I know, like, maybe Teddy if he really comes out, but I can't disparage Rodri in any way, shape, or form. And he's one of those players, like, where even when I say I think false is going to do the best, or Teddy's the potential to do the best, I think both of them could easily lose to Rodri. It's not like I could predict that as much better than a 50-50. King Why Not, I think, is someone who has, like you said, shown a lot of interest in Black-White. I don't think any of the people playing Black-White, with the exception of Eva Guerrero, are like that into this new meta, have done that much, and have the tour experience to really say that they're going to pull ahead. So I think King Why Not has a good chance of coming out like at least even solid Black-White player, and I don't think you could ask for much more. And General Annoyance is like, yeah, he's good at DPP. That's what he does. We talked about him earlier.
Okay.
I don't know. I think, unlike the other teams, we're like, these, no one really here is really going to go on a tear or anything. They'll be, like, fine at best. I think everyone here, I have a hard time seeing them going that negative, and multiple players have just huge tear potential. And I really think that they're going to have the ability to come out. And my one, like, real big weak spot is actually just the sub potential. Because they only have 10 players, and their 2 subs are Specs and Razzery, who are not the top-tier solid players. And if any one of their players, like if Lockjaw or King Why Not or Sam I Am, like, tanks or really has bad activity, then TJ is going to be in a very difficult spot, needing to start either Specs or Razzery. But other than that, I really think that their starting lineup just looks strong enough that even though several other teams could easily win, I think if they build up that momentum, it's going to be very hard to stop the Haunters.
To be honest, I'll give you my antithesis to that, because I think it might complement what you just said extremely well, where you said that you have a hard time seeing them go negative. So my idea on if they'll do well is based on really like a chain reaction of events. Is Kentucky going to be committed? First of all, is Kush going to receive the level of teams that he needs to do well? Because he will do well if he's given the right teams. Is TJ going to perform at a managerial level? We know he can perform at a player level where he can win his individual game every single week. But now he's going to be in charge of like the SM teams, the Black-White team, the Oras team, the DVP team. Is he going to be able to like cope with that? And is he going to be able to cope with the extra building? Because when you are the manager, you are expected to poof teams out of nowhere sometimes, right? So
TJ is going to put as much time into this tour as I've put into my Nuzlocke channel over the last couple of weeks. He's going to. I really do think he might not, like, he's a new manager. He might not have what it takes to be like the most motivating person in the traditional sense as like an experienced manager, but I think he's going to have like the activity and the teams and just like the genuine in there to win in it to win itness to
I don't doubt his attitude 1 second. I think it's purely going to come down to like a talent / ability thing. Like is whatever he builds on average going to be of the standard of PUPL? If it is, then he's going to come out like and swing. Like Lockjaw, there's always question marks over him. He could potentially not do that well, and if he doesn't do that well, the substitutes, they're not the most capable battlers. They are incredible. Like I'd put Specs as a really good builder, like a top tier like building support type of guy. I wouldn't put him as like a fantastic battler. And Razari, I don't really rate him as either. So I mean, he can sub, but I doubt that he'll be used sparingly. I think they wouldn't want to use Razari, but they might have to at times. Same thing goes for like Sam. Like everybody knows Sam. Like everyone knows Sam's Bonamons and knows like how things are going to go out with him. So I mean, if you counter team that, in theory, you'll always have a decent matchup versus him, correct?
And yet he always seems to do fine and be screwed over more by his own activity than actual issues. Because, well, he also hasn't necessarily faced the kind of tour that PUPL is like. Like Exhibition really is a bit of a different beast. So entirely possible, but
yeah.
I generally like Sam. I think he could go on a bender and be in like a not do as well. And again, if that happens, the subs are really an iffy point because either Specs or Razari is going to have to turn way up to where you'd necessarily expect from them. But I think Sam's going to eke it out. I think he's the one. Him and Lockjaw probably can't necessarily go on like big tears, but I think everyone else, Rodri, King, why not, General Annoyance, Katut, Kush, TJ,
yeah,
they could all really turn up quite quickly. Keep in mind, this is also a bit of a shorter tour. This is only 5 weeks, and then playoffs and finals, and that's kind of enough time for players to not necessarily like if they start tilted like week 1 and they start using like and Katut start using silly teams turn 1 and never gets into it, then that's real bad. But on the other hand, it takes a little bit to tilt, and if you start the first 3 weeks or so before you really go downhill, that's been pretty much enough time for you. So I don't know how much anyone's necessarily going to like tilt out, but I think we've both set our points here. I know that you rate your team highly. I know, you also rate the Haunters second highest, and you're more trying to like tone down my expectations and say that you think they're bad because you still rate them second highest. They look mighty scary. I think pound for pound still, even if like for example, I think Robert Alphonse's team, the Victory Bells, they are more likely to get like if one team wasn't going to make it to playoffs, I would say it's the Haunters as opposed to the Victory Bells. I don't know that they're necessarily as consistent, but pound for pound, like the pure scariness of trying to face what the Haunters have, I don't think that's matched. And I think they could really just absolutely turn up and blaze through the roof. As, again, even the teams that we didn't call top 3, the teams that we didn't say were playoffs, the Mistresses, the Kinglers, and the Octilleries, they could all turn up. Octillery is the least. But even, I think there's like a step. I think it's like Octilleries, and then it's like Kinglers and Mischievous. And then it's like Dedens and Victory Bells and Haunters, with that slight Haunters over the Victory Bells and Dedens, but much less so than like the other teams are above the Octilleries. Like, I'm just hyped for PUPL, and I'll be getting to watch all of it as not even like worrying about my own record and my own team and everything, but just getting to watch a lot of PU and just facilitate all this. I'm excited, dude. Not that I don't wish I was playing. I do, but
I mean, with this PUPL, I think last season, and possibly a couple of seasons before that, you could legitimately go onto the the team sort of like section and say, okay, yeah, that team is definitely not doing anything, right? You could probably just say the same. You could probably have said that about Genzion's team last year, and you could probably have said that about like a few teams.
Half-Blood, Print Clubs.
Yeah, exactly. So,
but yeah, I don't think any team's like that. I think Octilleries could tie anyone in any week just by virtue of like, hey, we've got Ziri, we've got Chloe, and we've got Chris Loud right there. Now, who one other person wants to get a win? Let's go. Oh, and Tasker. I'm sorry. Like anyone could come out. I'm so excited, man.
Yeah. So just a quick segue, I guess. Like as a wrapping up point, like who were you disappointed that didn't get drafted? Because you said, I think you mentioned it earlier, like.
Oh man, there were two specific. I know a lot of people were like, my favorite person from the room didn't go. You know, there's like Kelly Kafka or whatever.
Yeah.
Two people. As more of a room person, who, no offense, I'm less disappointed than the other name. I think it would have been cool to see Marrow God come in. I know we had like a few other like room mods who haven't come up in tours. Specs being another person like that. Aaron Boyer, you know, those kind of people. I think it would have been cool to see Marrow God come up and do something, but I can't genuinely say I'd expect him to get drafted or like literally anyone except maybe like Oruzius because no one knew who that was. Or maybe like Gum. I don't know. I think Marrow God could have gone there, but like I would have liked it. I would have liked to. No, I know. I'm saying like I would have liked to see Marrow God get drafted in that same light, but I'm not like that surprised he didn't. The other one is TKO. I'm really sad TKO didn't get drafted, especially after like last PUPL where it's like he had that whole signups thing. Then he ended up being allowed to sign up late. He's played like several PUPLs. He's played just like a lot of low tier stuff, and I know he always like comes around for PU. And he's also like he's a friend. I've interacted with a lot. Cool dude, and I'm very sad that he's not here. Even though I think a lot of some listeners might even just be like, "Who the hell is TKO?" But yeah, I really do wish TKO got drafted. There were a couple other tour players. You know, like Sky Solo, but I'm not like that. You know, like a lot of tour players got drafted. Some people eventually aren't going to, so I don't think that's that crazy. Was there anyone who you had your eyes on?
Yeah, there was a couple of people that tried it out that I kind of was disappointed that they either didn't try out well enough for the other managers, or they tried out exceptionally well for me and just didn't make it. Like, for example, Squash 17, I thought he would definitely get in on the draft.
Oh, yeah.
PU Ladder Tour experience.
Squash 17 and Skip Can, both ladder tour semis right now. Now they got picked up.
Yeah. I particularly rate Squash 17 because he played a best of 3 series versus me, and he lost all 3 games. But how he played in those games was so uncomfortable for me to play. For example, I had to Will-O-Wisp a Swanna once, and none of the trialists have forced me to do that. But he was playing aggressively to the point where I had to play like counter aggressively and say, okay, my stabilizer is not going to last very long if I don't make a play right now. So I might as well lose it now. So I'll Wisp the Swanna, try and catch a Metang on the switch, which I got right, but
okay.
One day it goes the other way.
I see what you mean. Yeah. And it also wouldn't have hurt to get like the people who had those, you know, little sparks to really get into another PU tour, because I know Tone picked up Yedla, Tlenet, and Jonago, all from like recent tour things. But I don't think any other managers really went for people just because they'd done well in recent seasonal or anything. You didn't see much of that. Whereas I think if we had maybe less, like if it was a manager who didn't know the community as well, I think they would have looked at like who's done well in recent tours, and then Squash 17 and Skip Can definitely would have gotten picked up. But people didn't necessarily seem to want to go for them, and I think they both totally could have gotten drafted, totally could have been, you know, at least like average fine. But yeah.
Okay, yeah. Just a disclaimer, Dibs has already started working on a Work Up Wiggly Tough team for my team, so
Work Up Wiggly Tough. Oh no. Yeah. Do you want to just skip Gimmick Corner because it's already been an hour and 15 just like for the rankings?
Oh, Jesus, it's been an hour and 15. Christ. No, let's not skip Gimmick Corner. That would be rude, wouldn't it?
All right. Fine. Then it's Gimmick Corner for you guys. Yay.
So I don't know if you guys have heard of this Wigglytuff set, but it's called.
You talked about it last week. That was it last week.
No, but this is part 2. Part 1 was like Wait, shit. That was work up as well, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Never mind.
We're going to skip Gimmick Corner then?
Let me just have a quick look at my channel.
Your channel? You mean your builder? Or like you've dumped everything from your builder into your channel already?
Yeah. Okay. No, I found something.
Okay. Oh, okay.
So, have you ever played a grass type or with lantern and thought, wow, I wish my lantern was able to kill this grass type? Well, now you can. Just use ICMZ Agility Lantern and clean from turn 1.
Yeah. Lantern
actually,
is
legitimate set. That was just a meme, to be honest. But
okay,
legitimate
good.
set that I was actually really happy with was Z-Trick Mesprit. That was sort of innovated by Shuckledeath, because I had no idea about this before Shuckledeath told me.
Yeah, that's +2 speed, right?
Yeah,
so what is the
Z-Trick
Z-Trick? Z-Trick Combined or?
No, it's just Z-Trick. I do Z-Trick's 3 attacks with like HP Fight, Dazzle, and Psychic. I don't know if Shuckledeath goes any other way.
Huh. So like just a purely like their team's weakened. Now I have this fast thing that hits decently hard, can hit super effectively, and as long as I've left the things that I specifically hit super effectively alive, as they're thinking, oh, these other, yeah, I can actually. That doesn't sound like the worst thing I've heard. Like not the strongest cleaner by any means. Not going to be like that powerful, but also if you needed it, you'd have Z Psychic to drop. Yeah, I don't hate that.
Exactly. So like think about this. Like how do most people go about revenge killing Mesprit, for example? So they don't usually go about the whole like I'm going to try and toxic it or I'm going to hardwall it with this thing. It's more like a vault turning whittling process with like Primate and like a Lantern. Like you go Primate, you click U-turn, you do 35, you go into Lantern, take 20 or 30 from the Psychic, Vault switch into Primate, U-turn again, right? It's that whole like whittling process that takes quite a while for Mesprit to die, but it doesn't really do much damage in the process, especially the offensive comp mindsets. So Z-Trick, actually what it does is like it forces Primate to think, okay, I can't use you now as like a U-turn chipping thing, so now I have to hard wall it. And if you think about the whole hard wall things in PU that take on Mesprit, you think of like a Lotus Slash, which you hit with HP Fighting, Guzzlord, which you hit with Dazzle, and I mean Skuntank exists, but for some reason that thing isn't being used as much. So yeah, that's why I didn't really hate the set. I think it's pretty good actually.
That seems eerily legit for the things that you've brought up before.
Yes.
Compared to other things you've said, that is like, if I was still an active builder, then I would totally like go and try something out and like make something around that. But all I build is NUPL, is ADVNU now, so oh well. Anyway, this was our big.
Also UCB. Yeah, wait. UCB around Pardos as well. Thank you. Goodbye.
Oh yeah. Anyway, this was our big power rankings episode. I'll be dropping this in the commencement thread along with like a summary of our power rankings, because that's an interesting thing. I really, again, I always want to return. What?
Yeah. So, basically, if you're listening and you've made it to 1 hour and 20 whatever minutes that we're at right now, make sure to put in the comment section below your rankings for the NUPL teams. So
yes, please. I would love to know who really listens to the end, because I know we actually get a lot of people giving us crazy positive feedback on this, but then I realize what we're recording. I'm like, how? Why? Who? Yeah, like I thought I'm still doing this because I enjoy it, not because I think other people would. Good Lord knows. Like, geez.
Yeah. So.
But yeah, please do let us know, and we always take listener questions and anything. We'll always answer that. I read every comment because we get so few. Anyway, next week, obviously there's going to be plenty of like game analysis and looking at stuff. I do want to keep these shorter. I hope it's not going to be like another full hour episode, but PUPL is like our big time. This can be like 7 intense fun weeks. I'm really hyped, guys. I hope you are too. Thanks for listening, especially if you made it all this way to an hour and 20 minutes, which I regularly listen to 2-hour podcasts, but not about PU. And we'll see you next week.